The gods of ancient Egypt govern over the human population. They stand very tall above other humans. Their blood is gold, and they can morph into terrifying creatures. With his brother Set in charge of the desert, Osiris rules over the fertile area irrigated by the Nile. This has left Set bitter. Osiris, who is in a relationship with Hathor, the goddess of love and rebirth, decides to give the throne to his son Horus. He thinks so highly of Hathor that he gives her the bracelet of 42 stars, one of Egypt's most prized possessions, and a powerful amulet against evil spirits. On the day of the coronation, everyone in the city, gods and humans alike, attends the festivities. Bek, Zaya's boyfriend, is a thief who will gladly take expensive items to please his girlfriend, so that the two of them might escape together one day. Osiris gives a speech and prepares to crown Horus after all the gods have paid their respects, and the mortals have left their sacrifices. However, they are disrupted by Set, who arrives pretending to bring a present, but actually brings an army of his own. Then, convinced that it's his turn to govern, he hands Osiris the staff their father had given to him and challenges him to a fight. When Osiris refused to battle his brother, Set promptly killed him and anointed himself pharaoh. His first new regulation states that from this point forward, wealth would be required to get access to the afterlife. Horus refuses to take this lying down, so he immediately launches his assault on Set in an effort to avenge his father. Both are highly skilled warriors, so they switch to their metal beast forms to continue the battle in the air. The troops of Set come through to aid their master, reflecting the sun on their shields to blind Horus, and give Set the opportunity to win and steal Horus' eyes. Set plans to kill Horus as well, but Hathor intervenes and offers herself as a substitute, leading to Set banishing Horus instead. After a year of servitude to Set, most Egyptians are still without the funds to purchase an afterlife. Hathor has been able to stay alive by playing the part of a devoted lover, while other gods have tried and failed to kill him in an effort to save the realm. Zaya serves as a slave for Urshu, Set's chief architect, while he constructs Egypt's largest obelisk. Bek has been assigned manual labor, yet he still manages to pay a visit to Zaya in Urshu's office whenever he can. During a conversation one afternoon, Zaya reveals to Bek that Set's soldiers will soon return with spoils of war. This means that Bek should be able to sneak inside his vault once it is unlocked in the evening and steal Horus' eyes. In order to aid him, Zaya steals the blueprints for the pyramid from Urshu and substitutes blank parchments. When darkness falls, Bek climbs from a roof into the carriage carrying the gold, which is immediately put into the vault. Bek follows the blueprints and avoids most traps, but one is triggered by accident and a third bridge isn't shown in the blueprint. Thanks to his agility, Bek avoids harm and eventually reaches the monument protecting one of Horus' eyes. The pit he falls into is infested with scorpions, but the eye's light protects him from harm. Bek goes to meet Zaya again in the morning, but Urshu has figured out the switch and is waiting for him with a large group of guards. Bek blinds everyone with the eye, and he and Zaya flee in a carriage, but on the way out, Urshu shoots Zaya with a bow from the balcony. Bek is attacked by Horus with the staff when he doesn't instantly return the eye after they arrive at the temple where Horus is hiding. Bek agrees to it on the condition that Horus brings Zaya back to life. Horus agrees to try, but his efforts are futile because she's already dead and he can't heal mortality. Horus calls upon Anubis, god of the underworld, who carries Zaya's spirit there for judgment. Bek is concerned that she won't be able to afford the afterlife price, so after Horus retrieves his eye, she makes him a deal. If he rescues Zaya, she'll reveal him the entrance to the pyramid, where he may retrieve his other eye. Set sends his troops to hunt Horus, but by the time he arrives to the temple, his nephew has already left. He does, however, discover Zaya's body and steal her necklace. Horus can't change without both eyes, so he's asked Bek to assist him up a mountain to join him in his battle against Set. Horus and Bek make it to the peak, where Horus prays to his grandfather, the god of the sun, for a blessing that will allow him to briefly transform again and soar with Bek to the solar holy vessel where Re resides. Every day, Re must do battle with the shadow beast Apophis to keep it at bay from Egypt. Since Ra does not want to show favoritism or take sides when it comes to his kids, he is not going to intervene in Set's quarrel. On the other hand, he does let Horus fill a flask with the water from the area around the ship. Once the last of the Egyptian rebel gods had gone behind their walls, Set pays a visit to his ex-wife Nephthys to strip her of her wings. Ray gives Horus power so he can return with Beck to the solar ship. But he loses it as they approach the ground and make a somewhat clumsy landing. Horus then sends Beck to collect some ordinary water to drink before they can use the flask of water to destroy the desert, which will significantly weaken Set. Set's Minotaur army, headed by Mavis, ambushes Beck near the waterfall. Thankfully, Horus rushes to his aid and swiftly dispatches all the villains, but Mavis is simply playing dead. The only reason Horus and Beck are still alive after being pushed off the waterfall by him is because of his staff, which he waits until the appropriate moment to grab before departing. Once Mavis reports back to Set, the latter executes him for his failure and dispatches his powerful hunters to track down and kill Horus. Then, since Hathor has connections there from her time as a counselor to the dead, Set begs her to escort him there. Hathor says she needs some time to think about it, and then she uses her sand-bending abilities to find out how Horus is doing. After realizing Hathor still loves Horus and that she's been lying to him, Set tries to kill her, but Hathor uses her bracelet to open a portal and escape. Beck and Horus had stopped for a break at Osiris' tomb on their way back to the city. Suddenly Set hunters appeared riding enormous snakes. Horus is in danger of being poisoned if he tries to fight these snakes. Beck swiftly devises a plan. He will flee to act as bait, while Horus waits in hiding behind the walls for the serpent to approach. Horus's strategy succeeds, and the snake is stabbed, but the staff is now lodged in the beast's mouth rather than its weak place. Beck runs for longer and Horus climbs on top of the snake to kill the rider. The second time through, the snake has no rider and continues aimlessly till it flies off a cliff. The other snake still needs to be dealt with, but just then Hathor appears, and using her superior abilities, she retrieves the staff and sets fire to the snake. Horus isn't thrilled to see Hathor, since he still views her as a traitor despite the fact that he now knows she had to take action to avoid being slain in order to save the other two. Beck says they have a plan to retrieve the second eye since he has seen the pyramid's blueprints, but Hathor warns them there is something they don't know. A sphinx guards the pyramid, and it will slay anyone who doesn't know the answer to its riddle. On the journey to seek advice from God of Wisdom, Horus continues to argue with Hathor over her decisions. Hathor gets fed up with being ignored and has a long conversation with Beck, during which she learns of Horus' pledge and is taken aback by it. Hathor hasn't said anything about how impossible it is to resurrect Zaya just yet. A short while later, the three of them arrive at Thoth's temple, which is packed with replicas of the god, since he has no faith in anyone else but himself. The trip would end in death, so Thoth urges them to deliver the riddle to him instead. Beck has a change of heart and decides he will tell the Sphinx that Thoth was nervous about giving the wrong answer. As the four of them make their way to the pyramid, Hathor berates Horus for setting Beck's expectations too high. However, Horus doesn't feel guilty because he knows he's lying for the greater good. Once they reach the pyramid grounds, Horus chooses to wait until nightfall so that he can sneak past unnoticed. Zaya utilizes her magic in the sand to show Beck a vision of herself waiting to be judged, while Thoth tells Horus that Hathor became Set's lover so that Set would spare his life. Hathor's capacity to communicate with the afterlife stems from her time spent guiding souls, and she grants Beck permission to send a message to Zaya about his unsuccessful attempt to resurrect her. After dark, the group finally reaches the pyramid, only to see that it is in perpetual motion. Beck picks a door at random, jumps through it, and then uses parkour to make his way across a moving bridge and up to the wheel that stops the whole thing. The gang as a whole can now enter and approach the Sphinx, but things go south when Thoth gives the wrong answer to the riddle and the monster turns on them. When Beck and Hathor back off, Horus holds back the Sphinx, and Thoth keeps throwing out guesses until he hits on the right one. With the right response, the Sphinx is destroyed, and the team can move closer to the heart of the pyramid to pour the water, but a trap is waiting for them there. Set appears out of nowhere and takes Thoth's brain, while Hathor and Horus are trapped in a cage. Beck grabs the flask, ready to move forward with the plan, but Set stops him by revealing Zaya's jewelry and explains that Horus lied. Beck is uncertain who to trust, and in that split second, Set takes the flask from him and breaks it. Then Set exits, anticipating their deaths as the pyramid collapses on them, but Horus frees them by turning the wheel. After confronting Horus outside the pyramid, Beck accuses him of lying and concludes that the gods don't care about humanity. Hathor decides that they owe it to Beck to make up for all of his deceit, so she calls upon Anubis and offers herself as payment in exchange for Beck's safe journey into the underworld. Hathor leaves her bracelet behind for Beck to use as a shield against the demons, which Anubis gladly accepts, and she and Horus share a kiss before she is dragged away. Thanks to the bracelet, Beck is able to enter the underworld without incident and immediately begins searching for Zaya in the line outside the gate, where the wealthy can pay to enter the afterlife and the poor are annihilated. Set, meantime, is strengthening the efficacy of his beast change by incorporating the organs of Thoth, Osiris, Horus, and Nephthys into his magical armor. After that, he takes to the skies in order to exact his revenge on his father for banishing him to the desert by boarding the solar spaceship. Ra corrects him, saying that he is mistaken and that everything has always been a test because he does not play favorites. He passed the exam because he knew he had to give Osiris the crown and the power it represented when the time came. Set was sent to the desert as a trial of his patience, because Ra plans to hand the ship over to his son in the future. Set becomes furious with his father and attacks him because he doesn't want to spend forever fighting a space worm. In retaliation, Ra unleashes a sunbeam that no god should survive, but now armed with the strength of numerous gods, Set easily defeats Ra and sets Apophis free. Beck locates Zaya in the underworld and intends to give her the bracelet so that she can pay her price to the afterlife, but Apophis' attack prevents them from doing so. After some persuasion from Zaya, Beck gives Horus a second opportunity, and he uses the bracelet to return to Egypt and reunite with Horus. After returning to the city in a carriage brought by Nephthys, Set appears with Ra's spear and, from atop the obelisk, orders Apophis to strike the Nile, the river of life. To force the architect to let them into the obelisk, Horus and Beck abduct Urshu. While Horus takes the stairs to the top, he and Urshu get in the elevator and get into a fight. When a torch is knocked over during their battle, the elevator catches fire and Beck, in an effort to save Urshu, ties his rope to the wall and jumps out of the way before the elevator completely collapses. Horus confronts Set atop the obelisk, and the two engage in battle once more. Set believes he is on top, but Horus is merely a diversion as Beck launches a surprise attack. Set dons his armor and rushes at Beck, but Beck knocks out one of his eyes and then pushes Set away. Beck hurls the eye towards Horus, who does the moral thing and saves Beck instead of the eye. Horus apologizes to Beck for everything before resuming his beast form, explaining that it is deeds, not greed, that determine one's value. Horus returns to battle Set within the obelisk after leaving Beck on the ground, and this time, by striking the walls, the structure collapses and falls on Set as well. After Set falls to the ground, Horus kills it with Ra's spear. Then Horus flies back to the solar ship, where he returns Ra's spear, and the latter immediately restores Ra's health and vitality. As soon as Apophis appears, Ra engages it in battle and sends it back the way it came, freeing Anubis to reopen the gates. When Horus eventually makes it back to Egypt, a young boy who found his other eye gives it to him. When Horus goes to see how Beck is doing, he finds that the youngster has been hurt by Set's thrust and passes away right in front of him. Overwhelmed with grief, Horus brings Beck's body to his temple so he can be next to Zaya. As a gesture of gratitude to Horus for his assistance, Ra suddenly appears and restores life to the young couple. The country of Egypt is once again bustling with activity just a few days later. Now that everyone has been set free, Horus may be formally anointed king by Thoth. First, he modifies the guidelines for entering the next world such that moral character, rather than financial success, is the determining factor in whether or not one is admitted. Beck is promoted to the position of chief advisor to the king and returns the bracelet to Horus, allowing him to travel to the underworld and save Hathor.